My key didn't work in the lock, but I had just left this house this morning. I was halfway through chemo when my son stopped answering my calls. Then I saw the new lock. The door was locked from the inside, and I could hear him moving around. I came home expecting help. Instead, I found my things already packed in boxes at 2:13 p.m. My own son texted me, "Don't come inside yet." I was still wearing my hospital bracelet when I realized I couldn't get into my own house. Something felt off the second I saw my front door. The handle had been changed. He looked me in the eye and said, "You're not supposed to be here right now." The moment I tried my key for the third time, I noticed someone was watching me through the window. I thought chemo was the hardest part of my day until my own home shut me out. My key wouldn't turn in the lock, and for a second I just stood there on my porch thinking I had come to the wrong house. I tried again, slower this time, pressing my shoulder into the door like maybe it just needed a push, but the metal didn't even shift. The afternoon air was cold enough to sting my face, and I remember my hands shaking so badly I could barely feel the key ring digging into my fingers. I pulled my phone out and called my son, expecting him to laugh and tell me I was at the wrong entrance or something simple like that. But the call rang inside the house, faint and distant, and then stopped without anyone picking up. That's when I noticed the lock itself wasn't the same, newer, cleaner, like it had been replaced recently. A strange, tight feeling moved through my chest because I hadn't been told anything about it. I leaned back against the wall trying to steady myself, still weak from chemo that morning, my body feeling heavier than it should have for standing in one place. The hospital bracelet was still on my wrist, slightly damp from sweat, reminding me I wasn't fully recovered enough for moments like this. I knocked again, louder this time, and I swear I heard movement somewhere inside, quick and cautious like someone had frozen mid-step. My eyes drifted to the driveway, and I saw his car parked exactly where it always was, which made the silence even harder to understand. I called his name through the door, trying to keep my voice steady, but it came out thinner than I expected. My phone buzzed almost immediately, a message from him saying, "Don't stay out there long." I just stared at it because nothing about that message matched the situation I was standing in. I pressed my palm against the door, noticing the peephole darken for a split second like someone had moved closer. Then everything went still again, too still, like even the air inside the house had decided to hold its breath. A second later, I heard the chain lock slide into place from the inside, and my son's voice finally came through the wood, low and controlled, telling me I couldn't come in right now. I remember stepping back without even realizing it, my mind trying to find a normal explanation, something like stress or confusion or a misunderstanding I could fix in a conversation. But then the porch light flickered on and off once from inside, and I noticed the shadow behind the curtain didn't move away like it should have. I stayed frozen on the porch after he spoke, my hand still half raised like I was going to knock again, even though I already knew it wouldn't change anything. And through the door I could hear movement again, faster this time, like someone was actively trying to manage what I could and couldn't hear from the outside. My throat went dry as I asked him what he meant, but instead of answering, I heard the chain lock slide again and a second lock click into place. something that made my stomach drop because that wasn't just caution, that was control. I stepped down one stair without thinking, my legs shaking harder now, and I noticed the curtain shift just slightly, like someone had leaned in to look out but pulled back the second our eyes almost met. My phone buzzed again before I could even process it. Another message from him, this time saying, "You shouldn't be here today." And that's when I noticed something I hadn't before, the keypad near the door handle, a small new digital lock I definitely didn't recognize. I stared at it because my son had never installed anything like that, and my chest tightened as I realized there were now two different systems keeping me out of my own house. I tried calling him again, but the call didn't even ring inside this time. It went straight to voicemail, like his phone was turned off or deliberately silenced. That's when I heard a second voice faintly through the door, not his. A man's voice saying something too low for me to make out clearly, and my entire body went cold because I didn't know anyone else was supposed to be inside. I pressed my ear to the wood, ignoring how unsteady I felt from the chemo still in my system, and I caught fragments, words like temporary and paperwork, which made no sense together in that moment. My mind started racing, trying to connect something logical, maybe a caregiver, maybe a misunderstanding. But then I saw my living room light flick on even though I knew I hadn't left it on. I stepped back again, heart pounding now, because through the gap in the curtain I saw movement on my dining table. My files, my medical documents, spread out like someone had been going through them. My hands went numb as I realized those weren't just scattered papers. They were organized, separated into stacks like someone was sorting my life without me. I knocked harder this time, demanding he open the door, but instead of my son, I heard footsteps retreating deeper into the house, fast and deliberate, like whoever was inside was avoiding me completely. Then my phone lit up with an email notification from a hospital contact I didn't recognize, marked urgent, and before I could open it fully, I saw the subject line mention capacity review tied to my name. I stood there staring at it, my breath breaking, as the door finally shifted just a fraction, not opening, just unlocking again, followed by silence so heavy it felt like something had just been decided without me. And then I heard my son say quietly from inside, "Mom, you need to leave right now before this gets worse." The moment my son told me to leave, I didn't move at first, because my body refused to accept that I was being pushed out of my own life like I was a stranger. And through the slightly unlocked door, I could see him standing there in the hallway with his hands shaking just like mine were. But there was something in his eyes I had never seen before, fear mixed with guilt, like he was already trapped in something bigger than both of us. I pressed harder against the door, demanding an explanation. And that's when the man from inside stepped into view, holding my medical folder like it belonged to him. And I felt my stomach drop because I recognized the logo on the envelope instantly. Legal, not medical. My son finally opened the door a few inches more, just enough for his voice to reach me properly. And what he said made the air feel like it disappeared. "Mom, they said if you're still considered fully responsible while on treatment and something happens, the house, the accounts, Everything becomes frozen until review is done. I shook my head because none of that made sense to me. Not like this, not without me knowing. But the man behind him calmly said my name like he had already studied my file, explaining that a temporary guardianship petition had been filed earlier that day to protect assets during medical instability. And that's when I realized the stacks of papers I saw inside weren't just documents. They were signatures, forms, decisions already submitted without my full understanding. My son stepped forward quickly, trying to explain over him, saying he didn't mean for it to go this far, that he was told it was standard procedure, that locking the house and changing access was just to prevent financial risk while the case was processed. But every word he said felt like it was collapsing the world I thought I still controlled. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a boy who had been scared into becoming someone I didn't recognize, someone who thought shutting me out physically was the same as protecting me legally. The hospital email on my phone buzzed again in my pocket, and I opened it fully this time with trembling hands, reading the words, "Capacity assessment initiated upon third-party request." And I felt something inside me go completely still because I hadn't requested anything, which meant someone else had spoken for me. The man in the doorway said gently that until the review was complete, access to property and accounts had to be restricted for compliance, and that I could not enter the home without supervision. And in that moment, I finally understood why the lock had been changed, why the curtain moved, why my own son wouldn't fully open the door. I stepped back one step without realizing it, not because I believed them, but because I suddenly didn't know what version of reality was already legally written down about me. My son reached out like he wanted to stop me from leaving, but I could see he didn't even understand what he had helped trigger until it was already in motion. I turned away from the door slowly, my legs barely holding me, hearing the lock click again behind me, not to keep me out of a house anymore, but to keep me out of a decision that had already been made about my own mind and life. And as I stood on the sidewalk under that cold afternoon light, I kept thinking one thing I still can't answer even now. At what point did I stop being the person allowed to speak for herself?